Alrighty, good night. Wanted to come with an update after like my last video talking about the shop. Essentially, we've already started the process and going through trying to sell the business and getting all that paperwork done, and it just doesn't look good. It definitely didn't look good in the first place, which is why we want to really get rid of the asset, or get rid of what I call the asset, the business itself, just so we can cut our losses on it. I don't even know, maybe I didn't even say that, but essentially we're trying to move towards selling the business itself and cutting our losses. Anything we make at this point, depending on what we sell it as, it looks like, depending on if we sell it at like low 300 or 300s and even maybe 500 grand, we're still probably looking at like a net loss for all partners. So I've been going through this process. Usually when you have to start working and try and sell a business, you have to go through a broker of some sort. You could try and sell it yourself, but the market is full of barbershops. And I'll get into what we're doing now, but this is what happened over the past week or so. And what I had to do is I went through a moment of panic, of just being honest and just like saying, yo, this is doing this, this is doing that, we're not doing this, we need to get this done, so on and so forth. And I was just losing it. And then I had compiled a list, and the list I actually started to try to do text message marketing and getting it out to as many people to say, hey, listen, we're a shop, we're available, hit us up. And that didn't do anything. I got 2 replies, and that was it. So what we're doing, or what we planned on doing, when that happened, I stepped away from it and stepped away from the pride, stepped away from the panicking, and calmed down, and then really started to think about what needs to happen and what we need to do to move forward. And then, I just gave it to my business partners hard. Just like I gave it to them the hardest way possible in terms of just reality, just the harsh reality of what is what we're faced with. If anything happens with the business and we can't continue to do this and we default on anything, what's going to happen and how it's going to look, so they can understand that, hey, us getting rid of this business as soon as possible is better than us trying to maintain something or us trying to keep something that we can't maintain. And also that's kind of like kicking my other business partner, who's actually supposed to do the sales of the business or do the sales of the seats, kind of kicking him in the ass and saying, hey, listen, man, this is what's happening. Like, if you can't sell these seats, we got to get rid of this shit. We got to dump this asset because we got shit in our hands. I think it's a viable business, it's a good business, but no business is a good business if you can't sell your product. Like if you're paying out of your pocket just to keep the lights on, so on and so forth, and it's not selling enough, at some point you have to say, hey, this is underperforming, I'm going to let it go. Now, going into what I've been doing lately with working through all the paperwork and prepping for the sale of the business with in this case, a realtor who's our broker. And what they'll do, brokers, the way they make their money, or realtors in any sense, they usually make a commission off of it. So I've heard lawyers say they do a 2% fee. So 2% on say 350 grand is going to be about 7 grand. So you're looking at 7 grand off of that. This guy wants to charge 10, which I thought was kind of high, because I know a lawyer that he could look at a business and he's charging, if you're buying a business, that's what it was. If you're buying a business, it's 2%. And everybody is different. If you go to a lawyer or you go to somebody else, because they're going to go through it and they're going to look in terms of doing what they call due diligence, making sure that the money makes sense, making sure that, hey, what you're buying isn't a pile of shit. In our case, I'm going to just call it what it is. The numbers state that this thing is a pile of shit and it's not there. It's just not making enough, and it needs to make more now. So And you got to look at things in that lens and just say, hey, listen, this doesn't make any sense to keep this, and we have to do something to alleviate ourselves, or like distance ourselves from this shit bomb that might blow up. But this is a situation we're in now. After you look at the numbers, if you think it's a pile of shit, what do you think the person buying it from you is going to think? And what are they going to buy it for? And does it even make sense to even sell it at that price? So what we're looking at is possibly selling the shop for, like, say, 360 grand. Each partner will probably walk away with maybe about 100 grand possibly. And then even with that 100 grand, each partner is going to have to settle any and all debts that they have personally, credit card debts whatsoever, or however. And then they're going to have to take those debts and be like, all right, cool. Or they're going to have to take that money and satisfy those debts. Or you can just pay it off over time and deal with that, but of course you'll lose on the interest. But at least you'll have a big sum of money. So even after the sale, 10% off the top of that, plus any liabilities that you may have. So in our case, we have the equipment loan, and that's a liability. And that's something that we would take out of our sale cost or our sale price, pay off that loan. So then the next business owner does not have to deal with that. So we would just actually go ahead and say, hey, listen, that's us. We're going to deal with that. Pay that off, pay any back rent off, and go from there. So even with all that, we'd still walk away with about 100 grand a piece. Actually, no, 90 grand a piece with the 10% that's being taken out for the sale of the property, the sale of the business itself. So those are the things that we're looking at in terms of, I keep saying that, but we have to fill out all types of paperwork, applications. There's sometimes what you can actually do as a buyer or as a seller. You can put in applications for SBA financing. So if the, I think it's the Small Business Association, if the Small Business Association deems the business viable for actual financing, then the buyer can come in, and this entices buyers, but the buyer can come in and say, hey, I'll put down 10% or a certain amount down, and then I'll finance the rest through an SBA loan. So that way they can actually finance and sell, or they can actually come in with nothing, and then or come in with little, and then come out with a larger, the possibility of getting a larger business or a revenue stream for themselves. I would totally be honest that our shop is for somebody that, you know, at its current state, it's for somebody that really wants to build up the shop and put in the work that's necessary and has the money to do that in terms of dealing with any ups and downs. We've been running like break even. Actually, we've been running break even and actually doing below break even, or running at a loss, I would say that's the better term. So running at a loss and break even, like back and forth month to month. So that's caused us to have deficits in some areas, pay bills late and things like that. So with all that, you know, the broker looked at it and looked at my spreadsheet, which is beautiful, but the numbers are ugly. There's minus signs in front of some of them. Fuck. You know, like, you just got to be honest about it. And he looked at it and he's like, yeah, you know, if you listen to what he's saying and everything over the phone, it just doesn't look good. So now we're back to the drawing board of, okay, we got to put some lipstick on this pig and not fudge the numbers, but make it look better. And that was part of what I did in terms of compiling a list of barbers in our area and then starting to do text message marketing. But now we're just going to have to go towards cold calling and seeing how that works. One of the things that I did today, actually, I sat in the shop for a little while and watched the coming and going, and started to think about ways that we can make this all happen. And I started to think about affiliate marketing. So get people that actually get in front of people on a consistent basis that are barbers and stylists. So they can go to these barbers and stylists and say, hey, you know, I know a shop that has space available. Do you think you want to change? And then, of course, give him some type of commission. Give him or her some type of commission. So these sales reps can be making commission off of getting barbers in different areas or different seats. We got 2 different locations that have space available. Especially the second location has a lot more space available. It's spacious, it's a lot bigger, and a lot cleaner, I should say. So spacious and cleaner. I told him, I said, you make a deal with these people. You say, hey, listen, I can give you the first week of rent if they stay here for a month. So after 4 weeks, he gets $200. So, and we have move-in specials. So we'll lose $200 out of that. But at least if I know that this person's there for a month, then hey, they can actually, that means that person can actually make some good money off of that. Now, I just don't want somebody to come in for like, a month or 2 or like a week or so, and then we have to put money out of our pocket. I probably have to make something for that. Or make some type of provision for that, saying, hey, listen, if they stayed for 2 weeks, I'll pay you $100 because they stayed for 2 weeks. That way I made some money and you made some money, and I'm not paying you the full amount out of my pocket, because some people can say, hey, listen, this person stayed there for, I don't care if they stay there for a day or a week, I still want my $200. And that doesn't work for us, because that's money, that's us working backwards. So making deals like that and trying to find ways to put us in a better position, or actually put us in front of more of our actual our customers in this case, because we're landlords. We have tenants that rent out seats. So if we have these tenants that rent out seats, we need to find these tenants. And how can we find tenants? Because this is even though this is a well-known market, it's still a small market. Like, how do you walk up and see a barber? They don't wear shirts or have signs above their head. So how do you find these people that you can say, not only just find them, but say, hey, listen, come to my shop, and leave what you already know, and also have customers that might leave you because now you've moved out of their area. Now they don't want to come down to you for any reason. Like I have my barber moved from Broward, and he moved down to Miami. So that's like a 30-minute drive. Plus I got to pay gas and toll and stuff like that. So it's just not only the time. So it's like, that's the thing that they have to think about and deal with. And they're like, no, this is my home. I want to stay here. They like the owner. The owner may put up with some of the shit that they do, or the owner might just be like, they're just loyal. So you have to fight against those things too, or you have to face those challenges as well. And then how can you do that? TV screens. Hey, listen, our water heater's on point. We keep the shop clean. All this stuff is here and available, to you. We have advertising screens. So if you have a little side business, in one case, we got a new nail tech in the place. So it's like, okay, how do we deal with this nail tech in this place now, or in this space now? And how can we help her with her business? And that goes into actual retention, working with people to actually retain them, saying, hey, listen, I'm having a tough time this week. At the end of the day, yeah, I want my fucking money, and so does my landlord, right? But you still have to work with them and say, all right, cool, like, let's work something out. If you're having a rough week, you got somebody that's in the hospital, these things are devastating, but they still need to work and make some type of money, or they may not have enough time to make as much money as they were before. So you have to start cutting these deals. Sadly, it is like that, and that's how it is when you're working with a business, or working with a tenant rent situation, even with housing. But at the end of the day, it is still business. And I almost had to do an eviction last week for somebody that owed us money for a couple weeks. And it's like, all right, listen, this is a hindrance to our business. You're not understanding us. You need to figure it out. Plain and simple. And I said, if you don't get us this X amount of money by Friday, I'm going to be packing up your stuff. And she's like, Mike, I know you're serious. And it's like, I told her, I was like, listen, I don't want this to be a surprise, but on Friday, if I don't get this money, this is what's going to happen. Try to be respectful, but very assertive, very direct, and letting them know that, hey, we need our money so we can actually pay our bills to ensure that this place stays open. Because if I have to make up for you, then I'd rather make up for you with you not being here, because this is just not going to work for me. So like things like that have to happen, or had to happen, and I've had to do that 1 or 2 times. with people, and we've had people that left with balances. So that's just kind of like the long and short. That's just kind of the nature of the business, and you just have to be prepared for it. We're not in the best position, but there's a lot of obstacles, and then also just we got to get our shit together. My business partner in terms of selling, me in terms of operations and where I have to make cuts and being serious about certain things, and then my other business partner Renard saying in terms of his marketing and what he has to do marketing. So these are the things that I've been working through recently. And then looking at selling the business, it's just not viable. It's not, anybody that comes in, they're going to want it for little and nothing. And we might be cutting it, we might be walking away with nothing, like nothing at all, even in our pockets, with a net loss. So it's harsh, but at the same time, that's the reality of it. The affiliate marketing stuff, we just made a quick ad. The guy posted it on his WhatsApp, and that should help us he has like over 1,000 contacts because he's a vendor and he sells products to barbers, clippers and such. So now that we got this information out, and hopefully people see it and look at their status on WhatsApp, it's another way to get it in their hands, so that they can see, hey, listen, this person's doing this, cool. How can we, or this person's doing this, and I might want to actually start working at their shop or something like that. There's a lot to it, So I'm trying to work all through this. I have to come up with a meeting notes or a summary of what's been going on this week for a meeting that I have with my business partners on Friday. And we'll just have a sit down and say, listen, this is what's happening. What do you guys think, and what say ye? Excuse me, because I tell my business partners, either we do this or y'all got another bill on your hands. And that's kind of what we're looking at, is that we have another bill on our hands, and we have to start mitigating our exposure to all this, or our exposure to failure, mitigating our chances of failure. So we're doing a lot with that. I mean, this is kind of a loose video. I was all over the place with a lot of stuff. I apologize. But, just been thinking about all this and trying to put it all together and make it happen for us. Because if we can find a way to fill these chairs in the short term, and even make some more revenue streams, and not just selling the chairs, selling advertising. One thing we have is flyers on the front. One of the short walls has a lot of flyers spread out across it. So I told my business partner, well, in one way we can clean up look and make some type of ad revenue is by putting the ads on the TV. And if we put these ads on a TV, then it's like, okay, well, we get these ads on a TV, and we can sell those ads to local businesses and things like that, and actually put more stuff out there or get more money into our pockets. And we can even start selling ad packages as well, because we have these ad TVs that are actually in front of people, which is really nice. So these are other things that we're looking at doing, and I have to come up with that list and go over it. But another thing is retention at all costs. So even if that cost is a bit of a detriment to us, it's better to sell a shop that has people in it. Although at the same time, the books show what's really going on. So you have to kind of play that game. You have to play that game on both sides of having a shop that is full, or looks full, looks good, and then also a shop that's profitable. And the biggest thing you want to focus on really is the profitability and the revenue streams for the shop, or for the business in a sense. So one of the many things that has been a detriment to us is, in terms of just our paperwork, is our tax paperwork. The first year we were open, or the first 2 years, we reported loss. And that's because of all the money in terms of construction. So our first year we reported a loss of $23,000 per partner. And that's mainly because construction costs. You know, we spent a lot of money in terms of like just getting the shops to a bare bones situation, clearing things out, and then also building it back up, putting all the framing, the walls, the plumbing, and we had a hurricane that happened, and that caused a delay for us as well. So all these things really just come together to really just be like, all right, you guys report a loss for these 2 years. You didn't make any profit. Well, one of the years we were just spending a year in construction because our general contractor was a piece of shit and other stuff, you know. So it's just like, even with all of those, we can explain it to somebody, but again, they don't care. They just look at the numbers and say, hey, this thing is not making any money. So what that means is you have to hold on to it for a little bit longer till it starts making a positive cash flow. And then when you get it to a point where it makes a positive cash flow, then you can get into, okay, I want this much for I want this much for the business, you know, and everything that's in it. Like, what's up? And then you really can start demanding some a little bit higher prices. So like really our sweet spot, if we can sell it for maybe close to 700 grand, that would be great. But I think, you know, it'll go for a lot less than that. Actually, no, not I think, but definitely will go for a lot less than that if we can't just get these numbers looking better. You know, if not, you just lose it. And it's like, that's not an option because, you know, I want to take this money and buy a house for my damn self. So these are things that I'm looking at, and I'm like, you know, trying to digest and finding ways to innovate and to make this all happen. And a couple things came together today, which was real nice. But you know, this meeting that we're gonna have on Friday is just gonna be a gut check for my business partners and saying, hey, listen, if you don't want to just one, outright lose this, or two, sell this at a loss, something's got to change. And a part of the changes that has to happen is that you have to sell this shit. We have to sell this product, or we have to sell the product that we have, which are the chairs. We need to rent those out. We need to get this. We need to do that. Or else we got another bill on our hands, or we're going to have something that's going to look nasty in court. You know, not between us, but between people we owe and other things that we have to do. Like, you know, like what's going to look like with the landlord if you break your lease. You know, you got to look at things like that. You know, you can't just look at, and then you can't just say, oh, fuck it, I'm going to walk away. No, you got all this stuff in there. It's too big to walk away from and then just be left with it, because the landlord will take it and then sell off all the stuff in it and then give you nothing, satisfy himself and his legal fees, and then still go after you for anything else that's left over. Because there's certain states, one thing I learned, for instance, there's an obligation to mitigate losses, I believe, in terms of rental. So if you break a lease, the landlord could go ahead and rent out the space and then mitigate the losses, and then pretty much whatever the new renter pays towards that space, then they can be like, oh, okay, well, we kind of put this towards, or it's kind of a continuance of your lease. So look up, I think it's like I don't even know, but I think it's like the landlord mitigation of losses or something like that for breaking a lease. In the state of Florida, the landlord is not obligated to mitigate losses, meaning our landlord can let this shit stay, can let this sucker stay empty for the entire length of the remainder of the lease period, and say, no, you still owe me the amount that we agreed on, and I don't have to rent this out. It's just that's what you're looking at in terms of business. I'm smiling and laughing and chuckling at it, but at the same time, it's like, holy crap. But that's what happens. There's no, in the state of Florida, you don't have to do that. You don't have to mitigate losses. You're not obligated to mitigate losses for the loss of, for the breaking of a lease. And I was like, whoa. So I tell my business partner straight up, we're looking at a huge loss And I don't even know what it would look like in terms of just lawyer fees and legal stuff to try and like clean this up after the fact. Excuse me. So, this is what I'm looking at. It's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress, but at the same time, you have to work with it and work around it and say, I'm a warrior and this is my battlefield. That's what I had to say to myself. Like, I'm in the shower and I'm like, okay, it's that scene where, not for you guys to imagine me in the shower or anything, but it's that scene in the movie where, the protagonist is in the shower and he's got the water running on his head and you can see the stress just wash away, or it's just like, or the water wash over his stressed face. And then he looks up into the camera and says, I'm a warrior and this is my battlefield. That's like, I thought about it afterwards. I was like, that's just cheesy as fuck, but shit, bitch, that's what it is, bitch. I gotta make it happen. I gotta fight this battle, and I gotta work with the people that are around me, that are with me in on this, and just be honest with them and tell them, hey, we got to figure something out. Stuff we've been doing is not working. We got to get something else in here. We got to make it work. So that's what I'm looking at, and pretty much that's what's going on with me. There's a lot more other stuff. Taking real looks at even my IT consulting company and saying, hey, I've been running this thing for 10 years and I still have my night job. And what have I been doing to hold us back? And saying, all right, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be in the next couple of years? I have a couple other plans. I'm looking at even finding a day job and saying, screw it to the IT stuff and the IT consulting stuff, and getting into start doing more data analytics and getting into like what's it called, data aggregation, and then pumping that into where you can get into business intelligence, because that's the big thing now. It's like, okay, well, this is the data and this is what we're looking at, and we need to do this with said data. So I'm looking to make a change and possibly make a change in my environment, because I'm like, if I quit this business and get that off my plate, there's no need for me to really stay in Florida. And it's the same thing with the sale of the shop. There's no need for me to stay in Florida if I sell the shop. So I'm looking at everything and just being honest with myself and my business partners in both businesses and saying, what are we doing? We need to get rid of this shit or get off the pot. This either needs to be successful, or we need to go somewhere else with it and just take an honest look, because I'm 33, going to be 34 next month, November. And house prices are or what you're getting for a house down here in Florida. I can get a whole mini mansion in Central Florida, North Florida, Georgia is where I was really looking at. And I started applying for jobs in the Georgia area and seeing what could happen. And and that's another thing, like, does my resume look impressive enough for people? Because people want me to have an associate's, have a business of science or a bachelor's of science, and I don't want to go back to school. I didn't really want to stay in school, so I took the certification track, and now I'm looking at, unless people see your work, which they're not clicking on all the links for your GitHub, they're not doing all this other stuff. They're just saying they got so many people in terms of talent. They're, you're doing aptitude tests. There's no phone. There's not even a phone. Even though, like, you get your application in front of them, they're doing everything. You're doing 2 to 3 steps before you even get a phone interview. You go through the application process. Then they start sending you automated aptitude tests and behavioral, what's it called, aptitude and attitude test. And that's the second level. And then the third level is maybe a phone interview, or maybe even You might even look to do things like a scenario or something like that. So they might put you in some type of virtual environment now, you know? And once you pass that test, then you can get on the phone with them. Then you can start going through, okay, I want to do the first interview, then the second interview, and then you might even have a third or finally get hired. So the interview process is that much harder because now you have all these people that do have degrees, and there's just there's an abundance of qualified people that you're going up against, and you really have to, like, whereas you could have gotten away with one or two things and you know somebody and stuff like that, or you have to fight against the people that know people. Now it's like, they have tons of people applying. You go on Glassdoor, they have the easy apply button where the application is already, all the fields in the application get filled out already. So you're seeing hundreds of people looking at jobs in DevOps and senior engineers and everything else, and then filling out long applications, doing things like that. That's been tough and annoying. So there's no autofill for that. So it's like, I'm in a like somewhat of a weird, harsh reality type space, and I'm just trying to handle it as best as I can in terms of everything that's going on, because I feel that with this whole salon thing, it's made me realize that my IT business should be a lot better, to where I don't have an issue supporting the salon until it gets to a certain point. What's the problem with that? Why haven't I made the move? What have I done? What have I done and what have I not done to ensure that I can actually be in a better position? And I guess you can say it's like a mini midlife crisis, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay. But then you also have to look at, you got to take those risks. Oh shoot, this is like 30 something minutes. So I'll go over that a little bit more. I have to go inside, chill, and I might go walking here in a little bit to think and clear my head. I've been doing that a lot. I've lost like 21 pounds freaking walking and exercising, and now it's coaching again because track season started up. So a lot to do, but I've been doing quite a bit and doing fairly well in terms of handling all this, sometimes panicking and stressing, just to be honest about it, and even what it's called, the discord that's caused between partners, and that's another thing. So I might make a video about that when I'm walking. So all right, guys, as always, thank you, and this is a long video, and so hopefully you made it to the end. Peace.